Hey guys, this video is brought to you today by the Sharp app. Download the Sharp app today in the App Store for free. All right, guys, we're talking about the money line. And you may not know exactly what the money line is, but I bet most of you have placed a money line wager in your lifetime. Let's just assume that you have an argument going with your buddy that you can take a basketball right now, go out to a hoop in your yard at the park, shoot a free throw, and make it. He doesn't think you can. So you bet $10 on the next free throw you attempt that ball will go into the hoop. That $10 bet, if you win, you earn $10. If you miss that free throw, you have to pay him $10. That is what we would call an even money line bet, meaning both sides are 50-50. Now, the odds are pretty good that you're either better than a 50% free throw shooter or worse than a 50% free throw shooter. Either way, anything above that 50% means one of you is getting the raw end of this bet. So how do we compensate for that? Well, let's assume that you both know that you generally shoot free throws about 60%. You're about 6 out of 10 because you've played for a long time and you know when you shoot a bunch of free throws, you know on average you hit about 6 out of 10 free throws. Well, he would be crazy then to bet you even money that you hit the next free throw, right? So that $10 bet against $10 is no longer fair. If we can assume that you hit 6 out of 10, then you're going to want to pay minus 150 on the money line because you have a 60% edge. Now, don't worry about the math. I'm going to get into that momentarily. All right, before we get into the calculations, let's look at what a money line looks like at a typical sports book. So I've got DraftKings up here, and we're looking at MLB. So in MLB, we typically bet the money line. We do this in sports where the scoring is not quite as high as NBA, basketball, or NFL, football, college football. In those sports, it's easier to put a spread on a game. It's much tougher on a lower scoring sporting event. So what we will usually do is put a money line on the game. That's generally where you're going to be playing the money line, although you can do it in those other sports. So let's look at MLB now. We've got the first game on this slate is Phillies Mets. The Mets are showing a minus 240 number. We see the Phillies at a plus 195 number. So what does that mean? The minus number is going to indicate which team is the favorite and by how much. The plus number is going to indicate which team is the underdog and by how much. The minus 240, what it's saying is you need to bet $240 in order to win 100. And the plus 195 shows what a $100 bet would return on the Phillies if it won. Okay, so again, you're betting $240 to win 100 on the Mets, and you are betting $100 to win $195 on the Phillies. So if you are a $10 bettor, go ahead and divide that number by 10. If you're a $1,000 bettor, of course, multiply it by 10, and you can prorate that any which way you like to help you figure out what it is you need to risk on your bet. All right, let's go back to the calculations now and exactly how you calculate the money line and how you turn that into the probability. We kind of did that in reverse in the example I gave you with the free throw. You had a 60% probability of hitting that free throw, right? Let's now look at if we were looking at a money line of minus 150, meaning you are favored. You are a minus 150 favorite. That minus number again means you are the favorite. We want to know, well, what is the probability? What does the market think the probability of this event occurring? So what we do is the calculation is you take the absolute value, meaning get rid of the negative sign, and you're going to do 150, the number. We're talking about a minus 150 favorite. You do 150, the absolute value of the line, divided by the absolute value of that line again, which is 150, and add 100 to it. So that's 150 divided by 250, and that's going to give you 60%. And that's how we back into that 60% number. And now conversely, let's assume you were, or your buddy now in that scenario, he has a 40% chance of winning his bet. So he's plus 150. He's getting plus 150 on his bet. So how do we calculate his 40% probability? Well, the simplest way, of course, is just take the 100% minus 60%. That will give you 40% because we know there's only two outcomes. And if one has a 60% chance of hitting, the other, of course, needs to be 40%. But we can go a little bit deeper into that and actually look at the math. To do a calculation on the underdog, which would be the team or the player with a plus sign next to them, we would take that plus 150 and you would do 100 divided by the line of 150 plus 100. So it's 100 divided by 100 plus 150, which is 250. 100 divided by 250 equals 40%. And that's how we would calculate the money line. All right, if you did the calculations on the Met Philly game, you'll notice that the Mets should be about a 70.6% chance of winning this game. That's the probability. And then the probability on the Phillies should be about 33.9% based on the line that the market is showing of minus 240 and plus 195. Again, we get to that by the minus 240. We take that absolute value. It becomes 240 divided by 340, which is about 70.6%. And on the underdog side, plus 195, we take the 100 and we divide it by 100 plus 195, which is 295. That gets us 33.9%. Now, if you're astute, you'll notice that there's only two outcomes. And as I said before in the free throw analogy, they must equal 100% because there's two outcomes, either or are going to happen. And if we add the two probabilities up, we should equal 100% because one of those has to happen. Well, when we look at this in the example of this Met Philly game, if we add them both up, we get over 100%. We get close to 104%. So what that extra 4% is called the VIG. That's the juice. That is what the sports book is adding into the price to pay themselves for taking this bet. So the sports book, of course, doesn't work for free. They need to make a profit, and that's where they're making their profit. You as the sports bettor, of course, are looking for lines where that gap, or we call it the spread, different from the spread in an NFL game of +7, -7 that we talk about in my spread video. This is the spread on the money line. And that spread, the wider it gets, is the more profit the sports book is making, and the tougher it is for you to win. So you want to look for a sports book that has tighter spreads on these money lines. You should now have a pretty good idea of what the money line is. If you're still having some issues with it, go back, watch the video again from the beginning, take some notes, do some calculations, and write some comments down below. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on the money line or any sports betting related topic that you may be interested in. Also, subscribe to this channel and you'll get much more in the way of educational content on sports betting. If you want to progress and learn more, this is the place to do it, as well as downloading the sports app. So I look forward to talking to you in future videos, and good luck with your sports betting.